good morning everyone, and welcome to today's session. My name is Martin Wanjohi, and I'd like to welcome all the 42 HR professionals who have joined us for today. Today we are privileged to have the president of Zambia Institute of HR Management, and also we'll have we'll also have Namucana, Catherine, who will be joining us for today's session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martin, and team, welcome.
Thank you. So, continue with our session around humans and the work. And as per we sent out yesterday, looking at this from the perspective of what African HR requires to be world-class, and then talent retention reloaded, what homegrown solutions we. So, as usual, for any questions, kindly type into the screen, type onto chat, and you can ask the question at any time as we go on. And so to start us off, we're going to take a small poll to warm up the room. If you have a look, you will see the poll that is on your screen. So we have two questions this morning. First question is, the knowledge we had pre-COVID is not very helpful in this situation, and we need to unlearn and relearn new ways doing things in our profession. So you can choose the yes or no, or nothing has changed. If you cannot hear us, kindly type on chat N, so that we know we have people we don't have. Okay, then we can also take the second question, which is, which areas do you see will require new learning for us as HR professionals? Okay, we'd like to request more people to take the poll. Right now, we only have 4 people who have taken the poll. Okay, I think we'll close when we have at least 50%. So right now we have about 14 people who have taken this poll. Yeah. Okay, 25 more people to take the poll, and then we can close, and then we'll have a look at it. Okay, we want to close the poll, and then we'll have a look at the results. So, just to touch on a few things, kindly share on chat from which country you're joining us today. Let's see where we have people from which countries today. Okay. Okay. As we see who is joining us today, let me welcome Namucana. I got it right.
Pronounced it well. You got it right, Martin. Thank you.
I've been practicing the whole night.
Well done.
So, welcome very much. And maybe you could introduce yourself, and then before we have a look at these poll results, and then we kick off today's session.
Thank you, Martin, and good morning, everyone. Sorry, my voice is hoarse. I'm just recovering from a cough. My name is Namucana Catherine Musiwa from Zambia. I'm a nature professional running a human resource consultancy firm called Career Prospects. I'm president of the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management. I served as the first female president from 2009 to 2011. Then I sit on a few boards. I sit on the board of the Central Bank as a member, that's the Bank of Zambia. Then I'm also chairperson of council of our largest university and first university, the University of Zambia. Then I sit on other committees, but I play golf. That's about me. I've 25 years experience in it.
Okay, thank you very much, Namucana. So I want to share these results from this poll. So, and Mr. President, if you look at this, what does it tell you? If you can help us to interpret, and again, from your perspective.
Okay. The first question we're saying the knowledge. Oh, first of all, let me welcome Namucana, the PP.
Thank you, President.
Yeah. And I love your voice today. Okay, yeah. Now we are talking about the knowledge we had pre-COVID is not very helpful in the situation we need of doing things in our profession. I've seen that 69% believe with this, and 31% they are still saying no. From my past experience, what I know is that questions in HR or indeed in management science profession, there are always no correct answers. It depends on how you interpret this. So for me, I think what the take here for us as professionals is that the knowledge that we had some time back may not help us much solve the current problems for today, because we need to relearn and be relevant to the environment in which we are working in. Because if I can just make a simple joke, when we were at primary schools, if someone said 1 minus 2 would answer, it can't. But as we go on, we find that there's actually an answer to this one. So I think as a profession, we also need to learn new things and let go of certain things which we thought probably they were not part and parcel of us. In terms of the second question, which areas do you require new learning for us as HR profession? I've seen a lot of people have 38% have put talent management and development. I would tend to agree with this, more in particular that at one stage, talent acquisition may also be part of management. The core HR issues, they are also important, although I may not even call them core. But this mostly is to ensure that there's a harmonious in the company, and that relationship is the one that helps in improving productivity. But of course, we have a lot to learn in management. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Namucana, what you're thinking around the talent management and development and combined with talent acquisition? Because I think that is your specialty.
Thank you so much, Martin. I think it has been thrown into the deep end, and we have to deal with issues that we did not foresee. We're so used, for example, to like when you're doing, first of all, when you're recruiting, when you're looking for talent, you want to interview people in person. At the organization I run, for several years, we've been encouraging employers to look at how to use technology to hire. Why should somebody fly from Johannesburg to Lusaka to attend an interview when you can have the interview on Skype. And when I suggest that to some of the employers, they know it's important for the person to come in person and things like that. But there are organizations that use technology to look. You can recruit online. You can conduct your interviews virtually. So now with COVID-19 and social distancing, we are learning that you can maximize the use of technology to hire and also have your meetings. But none of us was ready to have people work from their homes. And for both the employer and the employee, it's so difficult to work from home. You need to trust your employees. Are they really working, or are they doing other things at home? So productivity has certainly been affected. And then there's an issue that maybe we're not looking at. For some people, this change in itself causes strain and stress, and you find people are doing funny things, and you need to assess their mental state. And as HR, we need to think of how we can provide counseling services and support their fields they must be at work. So even when in organizations, we ask support to stay home and others to come to work. Others still go to the office and say, no, I need, if I'm not at the office, to appear like I'm not required. Now, the question is, if we can do with half the staff that we have, do we really need the other half? Those are questions we need to answer. And then when people stay at home, for some of them get into fights with the people they live with. Maybe I'll pick an example, a married man and the wife, they're not used to being together 24 hours. So you find they start stepping on each other's toes. I don't know if there's any study done, but from the reports we get from different countries, there's GBV has increased in some countries because people now are fighting. So again, that can affect, if your employees are fighting with the spouse, how will they work? That can affect productivity. So it's we're being challenged to look at the talent we need, and also to encourage multi-skilling, so that one person can do different things while we stay safe. But I want to say that we need to find a way of working and carrying on even in the midst of COVID, like we're carrying on with other diseases. I'll end.
Okay, so thank you very much, Namucana. So, Mr. President, today's one for you we want to be able to know is, what do African HR require to be world class? And maybe just before you respond to that, if you're in the room and you cannot hear us, kindly type N. If you can hear us, type a Y for yes. Let's just see who has issues or audio. If you can hear us, Y. If you can't hear us, type an N. Okay. So I guess we are to go. Sound is good. So, Mr. President, over to you. What do African HR require to be world class?
Okay, thank you very much. You'll stop me when you, yeah, because I may go on and on and on and on, and then,
okay.
Yeah, but first of all,
let me advise the people before you go on. If you get a question as the president is speaking, kindly type it on chat, and then we'll be able to respond to it. I think, let me give you a few minutes.
How many minutes?
Yes.
10 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think welcome my fellow HR pro. Again, I'm always excited when I'm with my fellow HR professionals, and I always encourage HR professionals that never apologize for being HR. Ever should you apologize that you are in and probably just look down on your profession. You are the most critical professional. I take it that way. If it weren't that way, I wouldn't try to follow and footsteps of becoming the premier in management. But that aside, probably what we need to understand first of all is what is, because we may say we want, how can we make after, but probably already we are world class. Who knows? Maybe it's the other world that needs to learn from us, because we have a very rich culture in Africa that promotes productivity. But if we all agree that world class is the ultimate of where HR contributes effectively to the achievement goals of the organization, where it is seen not just as any other function, but a critical function which an organization can use to achieve its goals and objectives. Then we have reached there. Then we are at the apex, where if you are not in a meeting, in a boardroom meeting, the chief executive and the other executives, where is HR? So in other ways, they should miss HR when it's not there. Now, how do we become world-class then? The first thing that we need to do is, like we are talking about COVID, what we knew about that time won't help us achieve what is supposed to be achieved now. Maybe is to relearn, because we have two issues here, especially back here in Zambia, with management, of course, which originated sometime back revolutions, when HR people were like just welfare officers, just to ensure that the employees have what they need and so forth. But we have said this has changed. So for us to become professionals and be at the apex in the world, the first thing we need to learn and understand and do is that we have moved the warfare aspect of, we are no longer people who are pushing fouls. We are no longer people duties to go and give a speech at the funeral when an employee has passed on, but we have moved to the strategic issues, where now we talk about the strategic plans of the organization and how we can get into there to help the organization meet its organizational objectives and goals to the satisfaction of even the shareholder. The shareholder out there should be able to be comfortable to know that once I have an HR person in my company, then to get value from my investment. I think then we are heading to world-class HR profession. But first of all, need to know that we are now strategic partners to the business. What does that mean? What that means is that we have, first of all, as HR, should recognize that we are running a very important in the business, the human capital. Where I know we have been talking about technology, and my sister Chana was my president Namucana was talking about the technology and so forth. But technology can be gotten anywhere, anytime, probably at any value. Each organization will be able to source that. Here we are on Zoom, anyone somewhere Zoom, have one president Mooka at one time. You cannot have two. If you need my services, you have me. One Catherine Namucana at any time. You can have one Martin at any time, and so forth. So this makes us a very important capital in the organization. And can you imagine when we are talking about what we are responsible for in terms of human capital? We have is all the competences that we have, all the qualifications that we have, yeah, all those combined together, all the systems that we have make up the human capital, the biggest capital in the organization. So we have to understand thinking we are stated that if we understand what else do we need to do? You know, a proper HR person should understand the business in or she is operating. In a bank, for example, where I am now, and you don't understand exactly the business, then it will be very difficult for you to contribute to that. If you are, for example, like I was at one time at Zambia sugar plantation, and you cannot know what is happening in the factory, you can't know what is happening in the farm, then you are completely lost. It will be like a doctor who is before a patient and is not able to understand the ailments that a patient will have. That doctor will end up just killing the patient. So even in us, if we don't understand the business, it means we will just help kill the business, and we'll go back to where we were as personnel managers. So apart from understanding the business, then we should understand the strategy. I'll tell you of one organization, new as we were, and now we want to start a plan for the. No, I'm here, the chief executive, who is saying, "Oh, finance, please, can you lead us in preparing our strategic plan for the next 5 years?" Then I said, "No, sir, it shouldn't be because HR or HC, I think we are the ones who are supposed to drive the strategic plan. Can help us with figures. How many of us can be confident enough to tell the chief executive, to tell the board that I'll run with the strategic plan for this organization?" And if you look at what's happening in this department by HR, you are the one who is responsible for this talent. So why shouldn't you do the strategic plan? So that is one of the issues that I feel we have to, if we have to be world class as HR, find ourselves at the table where people can say, HR, can you write this strategic plan? Apart from that, because now we know the business, we know the strategy, then which other organs do they align their strategic plans to the organizational strategic plan? I think that is also very key. You have a situation where probably some of our members don't understand these issues, that if probably you talk about how do a strategic plan here, is like you are thrown in the forest. But also to be thrown in the forest is also very important, because once you find your way back home, close that way. So that's what issues, and then we should know how we navigate ourselves so that our strategic plan is also tied to the business plan. Apart from that, members, once we know that, issues that you know is that you see employee or each talent. In fact, first of all, have an employee. No, Namucana was talking about the recruitments that you can even be done on Zoom or Skype and so forth, and other available technological channels. The first thing that we do is, if we have to be world, how do we get talent? Yeah, I always want to relate that to a manager of a football club who should get a world-class player. Yeah, if I want my team to win, yeah, then what type of players am I going to get? So I should get world-class players if my team has to be world class. So that was one of the cardinal issues. I'm surprised that in some of these organizations, talent acquisition can be done in the absence of an HR person. That's a sorry sight. Our job to ensure that we bring in the message in our team. We bring in the Ronaldo in our team. Yeah, we the Salas of this world. I think that's how it's supposed to run. And they recognize that talent acquisition is not just an issue of advertising, 2 questions. It goes beyond that. We should be able to recognize the competences that are needed for a job. I was sharing with my colleagues from when I had a workshop that, one of the important things that we should in talent acquisition is look at the competences of the employees. And when we are looking at the employees, we talk about the technical competences, which we get from school anyway, or in training where we go. So you'll find that I know how maybe to carry out a performance management. That's a technical skill. Yeah, I know how to carry out a sprint skill, job evaluation. So this is a technical competence, but more important, what we people is also to ensure that, oh, maybe I'm running out of time, but you'll stop me. Yeah, is to ensure about the behavioral competence. One issue where we are lagging behind when we are talking acquisition of talent in the organization, because what it is the technical competences plus behavioral competences will give us excellent performance. So we should always be thinking about that. We should think about people, for example, who have got analytical skills, yeah, maybe people who are target oriented, we call them results oriented or achievement oriented people. We should know people who are, for example, have got, because in our aim, it's all about influence, impact and influence. We should have those competences. So when we join the two, then we'll be able, the technical competences, that's the what and the how will give us this. So that one is very important. Now, I won't jump into Namucana's plate because we will talk about talent retention and so forth. The other issue that we should note, each company will look at productivity. Do we, as HR people, understand productivity? How can we maximize the employees into being productive? Because employee productivity in the final analysis also interprets into an organizational productivity. So we should take time as HR people not to shy away from this and to talk about the employee productivity. I was also talking about a few things about performance management. I think it's almost the in thing, more balanced scorecard. Of course, I've refused to always, some people say when you are doing benchmarking, and you identify the best, copy and they copy shamelessly. But I've refused to say, refused to accept that. If I'm looking at the balanced scorecard, I should just get the concept, probably work my own. So, when we have a proper performance management scheme, then it means the objectives that we put will be smart. We'll be able to do proper objective setting. We'll be able to mentoring and coaching, even when we do the reviews, employees. Because performance management is very cardinal to changing the culture of the organization. Because if the culture of the organization is that of performance excellence, then will not be in the world class. And one other issue which is important in this case, fellow practitioners, is that look at your current company today, look at the people who have got A's and the B's and C's who have performed, and look at the way the company has performed. If you don't get this equation correct, you'll find that you have everyone, your talent has scored all the best results, but the company has made a loss. A question is, were these people doing their best? Is this a loss? The answer should be there's some mismatch somewhere. I'll move along and also talk about, when we talk about productivity, these matrices that we use. For example, I know as HR sometimes we fear to talk about figures. Let's try to show our contribution to the organization. We are able to show our contribution to the organization. Then some CEO first, one of the CEOs had said, if I form a company, the first to hire is an HR person. We should also not shy away from technology. The old ways of doing things should change. Already, Pipi Namucana was talking about working from home. How can we have this flex time and still be productive? Remember, the most fear any employer will have is when someone is working from home, how am I going to monitor their productivity? Use all these tools. Apart from that, I also look at things like time management, but on the technical side of it. Okay, probably I'm able to do this because apart from HR, I'm a trained industrial engineer. If we look at business process reengineering as part of HR, we'll have a lot of impact and they will be in the world class. If we are able to say process so many inefficiencies, and we are able to show that improved the productivity, I think that will be okay for us. We should look for a situation where even when we are acquiring talent, we are using actual workload. Actual workload that is the one form. How many members of staff we have? How many times have we done redundancies and so forth? But it's just a feeling. We don't have the technical know-how, the actual work from the numbers of staff that we have. So we all need to do all these things. In other ways, let us agree and believe in the philosophy continuous. If you let this to be done just by accountants, I've seen in most cases someone who is doing with the processes is from audit or is from risk. We can have our own organizational and methods. We can have our own ways. We can have our own management services so that they help us on the path of productivity. More than ever, to have
sorry,
employees.
Mr. President. Sorry to interrupt. Maybe what I'd like to ask if we can pick any questions from the audience, and then also we can hear a little bit from on the talent side of it. So any questions from the audience? And if you have just joined us, you can share with us which country you're joining us from. Namucana, I think you can unmute, and then maybe we take a few questions, and then I have some or two questions for you.
Can I add on just a few words before people come in on what President Mooka? Yes, it's important to identify talent and to identify competencies when we are hiring, but more importantly, we need to assess the attributes of the candidates. A lot of times we are qualified and experienced, but their attitude needs help. Who have very low emotional intelligence, they cannot relate with other people, they cannot manage their emotions. So you find instead of contribute development of a company, they frustrate your performers and the key performers leave. So we need to assess the attributes. So maybe you may not know about the kind of person you're hiring. We need to also use other ways of determining the assessing the attributes of an individual. Then I believe so much, like I'm President Mooka, I'm also an industrial engineer in my own way. I've worked in an institution where we had total quality management and had business process re-engineering. So there's this professor who said success is equal to action, ability, and attitude. So you can have their ability, people can be qualified, then they can apply themselves. But if they have the wrong attitude, you're doomed. So we need to look at it. How do you paradigm shift in a nation or in a nation? And then sometimes we wait for people to recognize us. We shouldn't. If you do amazing things, you shine and you stand, part of the table in the boardroom. I'll end here.
Okay. So, Namucana, with the current that we are in, what are the homegrown solutions that we can have to retain talent?
I think we can look at, first of all, we encourage people. All of us have weaknesses. All of us have shortcomings. We shouldn't focus on the shortcomings. You can help somebody develop. All of us are where we are today because somebody identified potential in us many years ago and helped us to progress. So we encourage people to believe in themselves, because sometimes we feel because people are afraid and they don't believe in themselves, to encourage to believe in themselves and even to make mistakes. We learn from mistakes. Then there's a culture in Africa where as long as somebody is your senior, whatever correct, we need to change that attitude. A senior person can make a mistake. We need to advise them. We shouldn't blindly follow and blindly agree with things even when they're. And I think at a higher level, Maxwell, an author of leadership, says everything rises and falls on leadership. So as HR, we need to influence our leaders to critically think and do things. We talk, we don't implement. So maybe Africa as a nation should come up with leaders who can think together and agree on how they can transform Africa as a continent. Look at what's going on now. Madagascar finds a cure, but America won't accept it. How? So what can we do as HR to contribute to the development of Africa and advise our leaders? And again, it also, like I said, John Maxwell says everything rises and falls on leadership. So if your leaders are not so visionary, you're doomed. If your leaders don't reason, you're doomed. If your leaders do not rely on the expertise of your technical people, the learned people, you're doomed. If we promote qualifications more than capability, then we're doomed. There are people who don't have a degree, for instance, but they have ideas that can transform an institution, that can transform a nation. So maybe we need to combine, have your qualified people and also have those who've learned through informal means. Thank you.
Okay. So just again on you, Namucana, what needs around recruitment, maybe from the last 3, or rather talent acquisition and talent retention?
Yeah, I've noticed that institutions, okay, first, my mom does recruitment, by the way. And seen institutions hire on their own sometimes. They don't use employment agencies. They'll come to an employment agency when they can't find someone. But I also like the fact that not on the side, depending on the level that you're recruiting, you'll have a panel of different professionals interviewing and recruiting. Many years ago, someone can bring someone who's related to them, hire them without really subjecting them to. So there's collaboration and there's an approach. Functions in the institution will participate in recruitment, but there's also, I think people are moving a bit towards virtual, technological processes. Then there are institutions that do competence assessments. They don't decide after an oral interview. So, but I've noticed there's people have slowed down in hiring, trying to right size and downsize and things like that.
Okay. So, Mr. President, maybe a question maybe for you from someone in the audience. The question is, how do you determine, this is in relation to productivity, how do you determine the right number of staff in the organization? Basically head count, okay, so that everybody is working to the full capacity.
Okay, thank you. This is a bit, I'll give it the easier way, and is it not the difficult way, but the technical way. One of the issues that we can easily use, HR people, is looking at our terms, our organization charts, and so forth. For example, a vacance has been vacant for some time. Then you know that that is not a position that you need in the organization. You can remove it. You can remove it, and then you also look at those. For example, you have a director, assistant director, then all the managers. The assistant director is not important. So using that, you can come up with a certain number of people right away remove from the organization. But coming to what I was talking about, like work quantification, you have to carry out a work quantification study, which we may have to learn. So for this, it requires that simplest way is activity sampling. Yeah, you can able to break your job into small elements and then observe the job over a certain time. And then after you have done that, and the time that someone has actually been working, you can quantify it with the output that that person produced, and then find out the available time, because the available time, which will take into account that the employee has some personal needs allowances, have the relaxation allowances, and so forth. So your available time, if you divide now the achieved time by the recorded time by the employee by the available time, it will give you the optimum staffing levels. You have to go really the industrial engineering way, or the yeah, it's a bit complex, but on a smaller scale, if you want to do it at your level, you can do what is called activity sampling through production study. Production study is like you are taking a video of what an employee is doing. So for example, get a few of your critical staff in your department. Yeah, they go in finance, and then they have to say working or not working, or if they want, you break down that work into various elements to know the job, first of all, your job description. Then you can say, okay, posting into the ledger and so forth, a production study, and that will give you a rough estimate of their utilization. Their utilization becomes their productivity, and that productivity, the one that you can now use to inform your staffing levels. For example, if after you have done your studies, you'll find that you have maybe 3 hours that someone was working, and the available time is about 480 minutes in a day. If you use that, then effectively you'll find that probably you just need a part-time person in there. So roughly that's how you can do it. But on a technical, you have to use called predetermined motion times, break those into elements, and then you can test this and then come up with a production, the optimum staffing level.
Okay.
Not
very
easy,
much,
but
I-
it can be done.
Can I add on?
Yes.
Yes, please do.
And okay, thanks, President Mooka, for the engineering perspective. But we could also use our strategic plan. You look at your strategic plan, and each department of look at the strategic objectives that they will spearhead, and then inform what sort of skills and number. They say structure follows strategy. So you need to have a strategy, and then you determine the structure that you need. Years ago in African countries, you'd have somebody here, something to do. You don't do. You determine a need, look at your strategy, and then employ. Thank you.
Okay. So Namucana, a question for you. How do you keep staff engaged during this COVID period while still maintaining productivity? And then we can maybe look from the perspective of either you have a team that is remote working or working. And we can look at after.
That's a very scenario. First of all, even just flexi hours for Africa, it's so difficult to. We've been forced by COVID to allow people to work from home. There are issues of integrity on the part of the staff. How honest are our employees? When they are, how much time do they dedicate to work? But again, if you have, if you can measure their hours, that's okay. If you can keep in touch with them, you have meetings, and if there are not so many, if you are able to observe, they can come together. Now, the challenge many institutions will face is how to, because if I'm a lean, I might be in touch with my superior, but do I have time to be in touch? Maybe I'll communicate to a fellow employee if I need something from them. If I don't find we're not relating, over the last few years, institutions have been looking at team building and bonding and bringing people together to make them work as a team. For trainers, you can do management here. It's easy. We can use Zoom to talk about talent management, Zoom to talk about communication. But how do you deal with team building? Team building, the team must be together. So especially for large organizations, it will be very difficult to ensure that but I'm sure we'll come up with a way. Then there are others who just get depressed of working from home. I know a case where an employee resigned last month because he could not handle work. He said it. He says, no, I have to leave. I can't work from home. Simple. And he left. So we don't know what's going on in the mind of our employees. We don't know how they are dealing with working from. There are that there are many disadvantages under productivity when somebody, if I have an office job where I do reports, it says involved in the production line where manufacturing or providing service available. That's a challenge, and those are we need to think about as HR. Thank you. Hope I answered the question.
Yeah,
yes.
just probably, Martin, just in addition to what my president has said, what is happening is the fear in the employees is that if they go into the office, especially those who face the public, who face the customers, the fear is that they be exposed to COVID-19. So one of the ways in which some companies have done so that the employees remain fully engaged is to ensure that they have the necessary PPE. Is it PPE? Yeah, you have their masks, they have their sanitizers and so forth. And then also reduced working hours. For example, if you are talking about the banking sector, instead of closing maybe at the end of the day, they are closing around 14 hours or so. So they have, you know, they get that psychological thing that the employer still cares for me despite what is happening. And then apart from that, we have this rotational, so that you have maybe some employees will come and work this time around. Maybe the other day they will work from home, as PP Namucana was saying, and then they do that rotational thing. And for those who are working from home, ensure that there's productivity. Most of the employers have provided activity so that they can work from home, and have used technology like the Microsoft thing to track the employees' productivity. Those who haven't, they still have what is known as working from home employee productivity log. And what happens is that if working from home, still interact with them. How about this? How about this? Have you done this? Should be that feedback on the actual output. So you keep them, that way they'll be kept engaged. That's in addition to what Kaya said.
Now, a question to the audience. If your organization still has remote teams, can you please type, you have teams working remotely, kindly type yes, and then there will be a follow-up question. If you have teams that are working remotely, just type yes, okay, or wait. Let's see, share what's happening in your organization. Great. So I'm seeing a great number of people still have teams that are working remotely. Now, my question is, how often do you get teams? Daily or, okay, there's a question if you have, like, so my follow-up question is, how often do you communicate with your teams? Okay. Can we share what's happening for you? Then we can see. Okay. Daily. Okay. Okay. Interesting. On need. Okay. And on need or every other day. Perfect. Now we've noticed some questions around productivity. To close that topic, not to close, but actually to open it further for further discussions next in our coming sessions. Activity is measured first how you standard is through work motion study and workload analysis. The organization with the elements of work motion studies and workload analysis in the near future. And so I'd like to take any other questions from the audience. We have about 6 minutes before we close this session. So any questions from the audience, we'd like to take them. As we wait for the question, Ladies first, Namucana, your closing remarks.
First, I want to thank all those who have managed to log in. Thank you so much. And I've read some of the comments, some positive comments. Thank you. I want to just say that as we consider working from home, we need to see if our employees and the male employees, are they affected the same? They are not, and probably women are more affected. When I'm working from home, I want to stop work, do some special meal for the family. Then will be gymming and they'll be doing, games. They may be watching the news. I don't need to look at males and females are being affected the same. And then we need to consider psychosocial counseling. We might assume it's okay, but some people need counseling for them to be able to deal with working from home. Thank you.
Now, if you could share with the audience, your people would like to connect with you on LinkedIn. If you could share that on chat.
I'm bad at LinkedIn, but let me send something. Yeah.
Okay. Now, quick question to the audience. Are you guys liking the format we are using where we're having discussions, or people prefer PowerPoints? But maybe just to pick that, if you prefer discussion, for people who prefer PowerPoint, kindly type P. Let's see what people think about these sessions. D for discussion, P for PowerPoint, where you have an option of 1. Great. I'm seeing. Okay.
Ooh. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. President, closing this, there's an interesting question. I'll request you to respond to this, and then as your last, and then we can close. I think we have about 4 minutes. So the question is, how will you do a disciplinary procedure on an employee working at home, especially if they deny having correct instruction? As you I'll also respond to that, and then your last word, and then we can close the session.
Okay.
We'd like to thank everyone who has a session. Today we have ZIHRM professionals from about 7 African countries. So, Mr. President, to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. You are in Kenya, I'm in Zambia, but we can relate. So that's one of the functions that we can use, one of the tools that we can use, as long as our disciplinary hearing, our disciplinary court allows us to do that. Because I think the most important thing in the disciplinary hearing is that someone is given the right to be heard. But however, what some other people are saying is to take advantage of the guideline on COVID, that if, for example, someone is working from home, then on the day of the disciplinary hearing, they can be called to the office as long as they can sit a meter apart and there are not more than 5 in the room. The disciplinary hearing can still take place, and they are well masked. Yeah, so I think that's how it can be done. My closing remarks, that I'm grateful that I was part and parcel of the great HR fraternity in Africa. As I had said in my opening remarks, we should never ever apologize for being the HR people. This profession, to me, is the greatest profession in the world. Let us all try, by all means, to ensure that we show our contribution towards the achievement of the organizational goals. Once this is done, will always be called to the table, and the people won't miss us. We will always be there for everyone. So it's up to each and every one of us to take that challenge and make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So I've seen a question that what do we do where we have more questions because of the time. So I've shared my email. My email is martin@highperformanceafrica.com. You can send us any question that comes up from this session or any other session. Just to say to this audience here, thank you very much for making time to be with us today. Tomorrow's session starts the same time. That's 10 o'clock Central Africa time, 9 o'clock in Lagos, 11 o'clock in Nairobi. We will be using the same link to join. We will try also and avail this recording as quickly as possible, and also all recordings that are pending. So unless there's anything else, oh yes, Mr. President, there are people who would like to follow you on LinkedIn and see your thoughts. If you could also share with, if you allow us in the email we sent today, we can send out your LinkedIn profile and they can connect with you.
Okay, thank you. I'll definitely do that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So in winding up today's session, we'd like to say thank you to the over 100 HR professionals who joined us today on the eve of International HR Day. Tomorrow is International HR Day. If you noticed, our mailer had a message around that. And tomorrow's presentation will be looking at around leadership. We'll have a presenter from Zambia, Roslyn, and Yusuf from Mauritius. Now, Clement, just to respond, we will avail today's session recording within 2 hours to everyone who has participated. Be on the lookout for your email. We'll have an email with the link to this video on Zoom. So, and I hope people can watch it again at their comfort and see areas where they would like to review again. So thank you very much, every HR professionals from Africa. Join us tomorrow for tomorrow's session, and we thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.